Third title will be the American, or the Madison as it's called in English, getting its name from Madison Square Gardens, where this event first started. 50 kilometers, and there's a superb lineup. In fact, one or two of the Italian roadmen have made the journey across to South America for this, and I would think Silvio Martinello and Marco Villa were odds-on favourites. They'll certainly be challenged, though, by the Swiss riders Kurt Burchardt and Bruno Risi. Risi, in fact, last year's points champion at the Worlds in Palermo. But let's not forget the Australian Danny Clark, at 44 years of age. He hasn't taken any consideration for training for the altitude, and in fact, he arrived here in Bogota just 3 days before this event. It'll be interesting to see how he teams up with Brett Aitken, because Aitken was a former team pursuiter, and I don't think these two have ridden at such a high level together before. The important thing about the Madison event is it is a team event, and both riders have to know each other quite well, because it's a relay event where you throw a rider in and you take a lap out to rest, and you alternate like that over the 150 laps. The important thing too is to try and mark as many points as you can, because it's on points that this event is eventually decided. The first attack of the night came from the Argentinians, the Carucci brothers, Gabriel and Juan, putting the pressure on, but I noticed straight away that Bruno Risi, the Swiss rider, was there to make sure that if anybody was going to take a lap, he wanted to be with them. Superb rider Risi spends most of his winter indoors, in fact, on the tracks of Germany, Holland and Spain. There he is, number 4. You can see he's a very attentive rider, looking all the time for the possibility of slipping into a breakaway to try to take one lap's lead. Over the first few laps in an event like this, everybody's trying to check out and see what their opponents are like. They're trying to see any signs of weakness, and I feel towards the end of an event like this, it will be very difficult for the Europeans coming into such a high altitude. The Argentinians putting the pressure on straight away. And Risi didn't manage to get the wheel there of Gabriel Carucci. In fact, that was a good move by the Argentinians. You know, if they can put the pressure on like this all night, I think it will be extremely difficult for the Europeans, because the longer distance events, it seems to me that the Europeans have been cracking a little bit towards the end. And that is one thing I think the South Americans will take advantage of throughout this World Championships, the altitude and the fact that they can get used to it a lot quicker than their European counterparts. Carucci at the front looks over his shoulder to see what kind of a gap he's got at the moment. But all the time the Europeans realise now's the time they have to put the pressure on. In second position there looks like Danny Clark, 44 years of age and still riding like a strong man. Well, 13 nations represented in this final, and only 2 from South America. Argentinians, as we've seen, are riding at the front of the race, but the Colombians, Sergio Escobar and John Ramirez, are having an awfully hard time at the back. In fact, for the moment, they're almost 1 lap behind. But the most important thing about this championships is in fact getting the points, as Bruno Risi does here after 15 laps, followed by Silvio Martinello and Brett Aitken of Australia. These points are added up every 15, and at the end of the night, the man with the most laps or the most points will be the winner of this championships. There's confirmation after the second sprint. In fact, the Italians already in the lead with 8 points, ahead of the Swiss with 6, and the Australians with 5 points are in third place. And again, it's the Argentinians who really want to put the pressure on. They realise their chance of getting up there and getting onto the podium in this event is by keeping the pressure on all the time, because the further the distance, the more chance they have of cracking the European stranglehold on an event like this. They really have been superb. They put the pressure on all night. Every chance that they have and every time that it's slowed down, they have attacked. At the front at the moment, this looks very much to me as if this is Lars Otto Larsen of Denmark, looking over his shoulder to see if he can find his teammate. The pressure on all the time. The crowd getting behind these athletes. They realise how great this event is. But as we come up to another sprint lap, it's the Germans actually moving to the front now. This looks like Andreas Bierkrich on the front, but again, the Australians are always present. Well, with just 2 laps to go, it really is. The top 2 places have been decided in this year's championships. That's going to go to the Italians Silvio Martinello and Marco Villa, ahead of the 2 Argentinian brothers, the Caruccis. The last sprint of the night, though, will decide the bronze medal. It may well be the Australians can just pull it off. You know, the Swiss are up there as well with Risi. They really have to get points on the final sprint. The final sprint of the night will decide the bronze medal, but the Italians have been superb. Silvio Martinello has ridden like a man possessed, and he will take his first ever gold medal, I believe, in a track championships. But it's going to be the Danes on the line ahead of the Australians, but I don't think that is quite enough to give them third place. And in fact, it wasn't, because with 22 points, they dropped down into 4th place, just behind the 2 Swiss riders, Kurt Burchardt and Bruno Risi. But the ride of the night was done by Silvio Martinello, who'll take his first ever gold medal at the track championships with Marco Villa. but a superb ride also by the Argentinians, Gabriel Corrucci and his brother Juan. But now, take time to celebrate, Silvio, because this is a superb victory that you have taken with your teammates.